Yo, Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, are we winning yet? Is Xbox great again? Apparently, we've got two more games that have been canceled for release on the Xbox platform, one of which was supposed to come out in just a couple of days, and the other is coming out in March. So let's go ahead and talk about that. The bigger of the two would be 1348 Ex Voto, which is a very interesting medieval fantasy style game that features a female knight. And there is some controversy, which we'll discuss in a little bit. The other game is Nickelodeon Splat Pack, which is a compilation of some of the old mid 90s Nickelodeon games from like the Super Nintendo era, like Rocco's Modern Life, Real Monsters, and Guts. These were all based on Nickelodeon shows that were on back in the day. And these are the games that have been canceled, and we're going to see more in the future for sure because the Xbox side of things have not been looking great. The hardware sales have plummeted. The software sales, in turn, have also plummeted. We've got decreases in the number of subscriptions to Game Pass, people canceling their subscription or downgrading their subscription to a cheaper version of Game Pass. So, I've got the trailers for both of these games here. Let's go ahead and play the trailer first for Ex Voto, and I'll pause a couple times to offer some commentary. So here we go.
Bianca, where have they taken you? God, hear my vow.
Okay, first of all, a couple of things I'd like to keep in mind. The visuals are absolutely great considering that this is from a small studio. I believe it's their first game. They're based out of Italy, from what I understand. And so this kind of harkens back to Warhorse Studios with the Kingdom Come games, making a historical fantasy type game based on, I guess, some sort of real events that it took place. Their game, of course, took place during like the Czech Republic, the Holy Roman Empire, all that stuff from I think the 15th century, 16th century, sometime around there. And this is from the 14th century in Italy. Um, Now you'll notice that there was a female character that you're playing as. She's supposed to be a knight, and as you can tell, some of the grifter type people have had a lot to say about that. But let's go ahead and continue the trailer.
Mother, you have given me the courage to be myself. Guide my steps on this forlorn journey. Father, you have taught me honor and respect. Watch upon me now.
But yeah, obviously the environments are absolutely stunning. A lot of attention to detail. Just like with Warhorse with the Kingdom Come games, they're clearly they clearly are using an attention to detail that is not common, particularly with AAA games nowadays, where they just kind of like make shit up that they think is appropriate. There's definitely like a little bit more of a finer tuned edge.
Let my sword strike true. And those that I have failed today, may I one day be worthy.
Now, one thing we have to keep in mind. You saw how she looks. She has that weird bowl style haircut and I mean, not really the prettiest face. You do have to keep in mind that during this era of human history, going to battles was solely a man's kind of thing. You have to keep in mind this game's apparently taking place even before Joan of Arc, from what I understand. So they're clearly trying to present themselves as a guy because it just would not have been culturally acceptable for a woman to take this kind of role. So something to keep in mind. And, obviously, unlike certain other developers, they understand that they're trying to tell a story and they're not trying to appease the eyes of certain people.
Bianca. You are all that is left to me.
Okay. Now, I'm not totally sold, but the combat gameplay that they showed, it did look a little like that made me think, okay, that's definitely an indie game. Hopefully they were able to, this trailer, I guess, was a few months ago. Hopefully they were able to fine tune the animation, make it look a little more seamless and fluid, because it did look a little choppy on that regard. But otherwise, this game looks really impressive. I'm guessing it's going to be somewhere in between something like, what is that? The Plague Tale, Innocence, those kind of games. Somewhere between that and Kingdom Come Deliverance is how it appears to me. You know, like it's going to have some more combat than something like the Plague Tale games, but not quite as much as Kingdom Come. At least that's what I'm getting the gist of here. And that was another historical fiction kind of game as well, the Plague Tale, Innocence, you know, those games. I think there was like 2 of them, right? And are they coming out with the 3rd one? I thought I heard something about that, but
I shall save you. This, I vow.
yeah. So this was on the PlayStation channel. And at the time, they just had it on their thing. But now I guess it's a console exclusive. Congratulations, Sony. They didn't have to like money had it at all. It's just the developer decided, hey, it's not even worth our time or money to invest into the Xbox version of the game. They probably looked at the metrics of the marketplace on there and saw, yeah, this is not going to be worth our time. We don't know if we'll even make the money back that we would have spent to finish the Xbox version of the game. Or it could have been for some other reason. It could have been related to the Series S. You know, maybe they didn't want to devote additional resources to get the game to run acceptably on the Series S. And Microsoft has in the past caused issues with developers. That's why we didn't get Baldur's Gate 3 at launch, why we didn't get what is that game with the monkey dude that was really popular in Japan? I'm kind of blanking. Oh yeah, Black Myth Wukong. We didn't get those games on Xbox when they originally came out. They came out later. And that's because those developers had to spend additional time and resources to get them to work on the Series S, because Microsoft's like, no, if you're going to release the game, you have to make sure that it releases on both platforms. Feature parity and everything. In the case of Baldur's Gate, they claim that the platform was able to run just a regular game just fine, but there was issues with the split screen mode on the Series S, and that's why that ended up getting delayed for Xbox. And then for Black Myth, I think it was just a generic performance issue in general. They weren't able to get acceptable frame rate initially for the Series S, and then I guess they eventually figured it out. You know, obviously it took them a few months or whatever it was before that eventually came out to Xbox. Now, this Nickelodeon Splat Pack, that one's a different story entirely, because these are old Super Nintendo games that is basically an emulation wrapper. And this is from the Limited Run announcement, our good old friends at Limited Run, you know. So let's go ahead and play that little trailer, because why not? Okay, so you're getting 3 games here. You're getting Rocko's Modern Life. I remember watching that show as a tween or whatever. I guess Guts. I don't really remember Guts too much. I guess that must have been. And then, of course, Real Monsters. I remember that one as well. So these are the ones that are included here. It's interesting that they're not including any of the games like Ren and Stimpy and stuff like that. You figure that would have been a shoo-in for a collection like this. But alas, it's not. It's discussing some of the, I guess, emulation features are going to have, like rewind and save states and that kind of good stuff, you know. And funny enough, you know, even though this is for the physical release announcement, so they weren't going to do a physical release for Xbox, but they were still going to publish the game on Xbox, but they were announcing the platforms for that they were going to release on. Now that's just the release platforms for this collection. So kind of like a smart move to do the trailer the way they did, I suppose, because they ended up canceling that. I can't imagine that the development cost would have really been materially all that different. But I'm guessing in Limited Run's case, they really push the physical releases and they probably see a lot of their revenue from that. And the fact that there's not going to be a physical release on the Xbox version, I guess they weren't anticipating they weren't even get that very many downloads for this particular game on the Xbox platforms. So they just didn't bother. So that's kind of interesting. Now, it mentions PS4 on this here. I wonder, because it doesn't mention it for the physical release, but I wonder if they're going to be doing a digital PS4 version of the game. I don't know. But I wanted to take a look at, because Xbox has had a great history of canceling games lately. So we're kind of looking back a little bit here, guys. They've had tons of layoffs, studio closures. They canceled Rare's game Everwild, so now Rare essentially is just nothing more than a live service company making nothing but Sea of Thieves content. And eventually that gravy train is going to run out. That game's still popular from what I understand, but that gravy train is going to run out, and then what's going to happen to Rare at that point? They need to have a project like Everwild or something like along that nature in development, so they'll have something to move on to. Because live service games, they're not going to be forever. There might be a select few that can last literally decades, but that's not the experience of most live service games. Most of them die after a year. I mean, we just had the whole high guard situation. I did a couple of videos. Be sure to check out the cards as they pop up, and you can take a look at those videos. I'm gonna do one more video in regards to high guard, because I do actually have a lot to say that I didn't say before. Of course, we had Perfect Dark. That got canceled. That looked absolutely brilliant when they revealed that. That really upset me when they canceled Perfect Dark. They're discussing other layoffs. Apparently, they killed off Warcraft Rumble. I have no idea what that is. I'm sure it's some kind of mobile game. So, that kind of sucks. And then, of course, they canceled the new game from Romero Games, headed by legendary game developer John Romero, known for games that were absolutely brilliant, like Doom, and some that aren't quite so much, like Daikatana. But that being said, he was going to be making a new game in partnership with Xbox, going to put it on Game Pass and all this good stuff. And then Microsoft's like, nope. Now, from what I understand, they apparently are rebooting this project without Microsoft's assistance now under a smaller kind of thing. And hopefully that will bear fruit. I really look forward to that. But yeah, that's the state of Microsoft in the year 2026. Just so far, guys. You're going to be hearing a lot more in terms of cancellations, delays, all this good stuff, because for a lot of studios, it is just not going to be worth it to put on this platform. Why put in the time, money, and effort to support a platform that apparently the platform holder themselves doesn't care too much about? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you happen to do so, please check out the last video I did. And then, of course, in the other corner, there's going to be one the algorithm's going to send that's going to be very fire for you. And don't forget, would you kindly subscribe? And that is going to be the last line.